Hey, Matthew, clean it up.
One was with Devo, one was with Oingo Boingo. They both became like really successful cinema scorers.
But I mean, don't they just both get crushed by Trent?
No. How many did he even do? Mark Mothersbaugh done like 10 million movies, and so is fucking Danny Elfman. Trent Reznor did like
is
5
doing
movies.
Are you talking? You don't even know what you're fucking talking about, do you? He's doing like every new movie that comes out.
Okay, did he belong to a geek rock band in the 80s?
I can neither confirm nor deny.
Then that's probably not what we're talking about.
Perhaps he did.
Oh, real? Oh, you think so?
Perhaps.
Yeah, I remember that time Trent Reznor beat out They Might Be Giants for that one Wes Anderson movie.
Gentlemen, let's broaden our minds.
Are they in the proper approach pattern for today?
Negative.
Hold weapons! Now! Charge the lightning field.
Joey Lawrence. Discuss.
Whoa.
People forget, but in Blossom, he was a minor league baseball player. That was his arc.
But did he clear all the bases with Blossom there?
His sister? Let me think back on the show. No, I don't think so.
Well, I did not remember they were brother and sister.
That was her older brother.
Who gives a shit?
Only Joey Lawrence. And even that might be stretching it, to be perfectly honest. One of the Lawrences care.
Uh-huh.
So it was like Joey, Matthew, Andrew, Jennifer,
Beelzebub,
Tito, and then that last Culkin that everyone forgets. Squiggy. It's Squiggy. Yep. It is definitely that.
No, it's a Hulkin Culkin.
He was the minor professional wrestler that they forget about. He wore this like crazy weird drape over his face, and like
one of his finishing moves is he throws micro machines on the mat and then he hits you with a paint can.
Yeah.
Give him the old bloomin' onion,
well,
eh?
That's after the show. But no, we're done we're done with Joey Lawrence, I think.
Oh no, Joey Lawrence isn't done with us.
Is that a Magnolia reference? Well, the good book says you might be done with Joey Lawrence, and Joey Lawrence ain't done with you.
Now I'm just thinking of Joey Lawrence in other films. I abandoned my Joey Lawrence.
You know what? Just like Hollywood, I have a hard time imagining Joey Lawrence in other films.
Well, not everything works.
No, in fact, very little of what we do does. But
we can't all be Joey Lawrence.
Hey, we can't all be Joey Lawrence.
Hey, pick and choose. Only one of us gets to be Joey Lawrence.
Matthew, one of us gets to eat this week. All right?
Hey, is your name Joey Lawrence? I don't think so. All right?
Hey,
you get the
Joey
scraps
Lawrence
under the
cares
table.
About one guy, Joey Lawrence. I just imagine like somebody throwing a T-bone steak partly chewed down on the floor, and the other Lawrence brothers are ravaging it along with reluctantly 2 Baldwin brothers.
all of a sudden, Heath Ledger comes out and he just breaks a pool cue over his knee and throws the shards down.
Yeah, that's very much like Halloween.
Some people just want to see the brothers burn. Welcome back to Dispatch Ajax on this obviously very spooky episode.
Very, very spooky.
I am your slowly dying and decaying host, Jake, along with my other host.
Oh, me? Yeah, it's me, Skip.
It's the ghost formerly known as Skip.
Obviously, this is spooky season.
Spooky. Get spooked.
Get the fuck spooked! I'm yelling at my dogs. No, I'm not. No, they're actually outside. But
they can't hear you.
I made sure they can't hear.
Skip.
Jake.
When we were kids, it was a different time.
Yes. I remember if I remember right, we were animated, and there was a soundtrack done by a guy from a famous geek band. right? And then we walked around in our diapers and then made commentary on. Was that not? Oh, was that Rugrats?
I ain't no rug rat. Fool.
That is interesting, mashing that up with Professor Murder. That is actually really interesting. I'm very curious as to how that would go.
I ain't no Tommy Pickles.
I ain't no Tommy Pickles. Fuck, that's a good one.
You didn't have the internet at the tip of your fingers.
Mm-mm.
You didn't have streaming options. You wanted to see new movies, old movies. You went to one place, and that was the video store.
Channel 62.
For your reruns. Didn't have a,
Ray Stevens.
Ray Stevens. That's what I was, that's exactly what I was thinking of.
Local Kansas City car dealer. Who hosted a late night horror B-movie show. It's sort of like the Joe Bob Briggs.
Yeah, or like Sven Gulli.
Or Sven Gulli, but he was literally a used car dealer. Like, he didn't have a background in film, but he apparently loved that shit. I remember watching RoboCop, hosted by Ray Stevens, on that, like, what was it, late night theater or whatever it was called. It was the fucking best. Because he'd come back and he'd go, wow, that was weird, huh?
Oh, man.
He was this older man with Coke bottle glasses and a beard with gray streaks in it, slicked back hair, and just looked kind of like a guy that in the 80s would, I don't know. He was kind of weird looking for a used car dealer too. You could tell he was kind of an odd dude, but yeah, he owned a chain of used car dealerships in Kansas City, and he would host a late night B-movie festival every Friday night on Channel 60.
Yes. If you weren't catching Ray Stevens on Channel 62.
Not the streak, but the used car dealer from Kansas City, Ray Stevens.
Yeah, if you weren't catching either of them on your local TV channel, which you only had 5 of them at the time, you went to the movie store, the video store.
The movie store. That makes you sound like you're too old for even that.
If you wanted your own reel-to-reel...
It makes it sound like you were my grandfather taking me to the video store.
You want to go to the movie store?
Old man Nelson strikes again. I had one cousin that worked at the Lee Summit 4, and then his brother worked at Price Chopper Video.
Ah, yeah, Price Chopper Video.
Oh, man, where I, for literally no discernible reason other than being related to a guy that worked there, got the Primo rental package where you were supposed to, like, if you rent a certain number of videos and video games or whatever, you get these fake dollars that you get to, like, turn back in. You have enough of them, you get to, the ultimate prize was for 30 days, you got to rent up to 5 Sega Genesis, just video games.
5? What?
No, a day.
I know, it's crazy.
It's crazy. As Chef Boyardee might have said.
Who's a giving these deals?
It's ironic because it sounds like a Mario, but it's a Sega. And then my brother and I would literally go up there every day and we'd play all of them and take them all back. And then, so I played a lot of Michael Jackson's Moonwalker on Sega Genesis. But
it was a choice.
It was a choice I made.
He could have chosen anything, and that's what he picked.
But that's the thing is, I did choose anything. I chose literally everything.
And the thing that stuck.
Yep. Well, no, that just the once, but yes. Anyway.
Well, when you weren't getting video games or watching Channel 62, you'd go pick up movies. I know, like, every time I went as a kid, I never failed to always pick up Big Trouble in Little China, and I'd get something else along with it.
Was it just you or were your parents involved, or like?
No, I mean my parents would take me. You
make it sound like you're a wandering vagabond, like some sort of
no. They would just let me go pick whatever I wanted, and so I usually got to pick 2 movies. Whatever I wanted, they'd pick their own things, and like we'd watch them all together, whatever.
Sure.
But every once in a while I'd pick a horror film. But some of them always kind of stuck out in my mind. Like I can still see the box art cover.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
But I never actually rented the film. So like the 1989 film Shocker, starring Mitch Pileggi. I don't know if you remember this.
Oh, I do.
But yeah, the cover It's all black, and there's just Mr. Pileggi in the... He almost looks like a crash test dummy outfit.
Yeah.
And he's just getting electrocuted on the chair, and he's like gritting his teeth. I always remembered that. There's a film called Road Games.
Huh.
That's 1981. It was an Australian film.
Oh, okay.
But I always remembered, it's like still to this day, it's one of my favorite movie poster VHS covers.
Okay.
Here, just Google Road Games.
I'm looking right now.
So it's starring Stacy Keach and Jamie Lee Curtis.
Oh,
yeah.
I remember seeing this.
Yeah, so it's this
okay.
It's this woman, and you only see her a third of the face down, and then your chest, and she has like this black tank top on, and her nipples kind of perked up, and there are these hands that are gloved, like driver gloves.
Yeah.
And one of them is holding what looks to be maybe her necklace, or maybe it's piano wire that's going around her neck.
Or also flashing that white supremacist symbol.
Oh, well, the other hand is supposedly like pulling down what would be a zipper on the front of her shirt.
Right.
But it's done in the
yellow dividing
lines of a highway.
Yeah, it's funny. There's a different one that is really similar that I don't know if you've seen this one. Send it to you. It's almost the exact same cover, but they show the woman's face and it is not Jamie Lee Curtis. But it is definitely from that. Hold on,
They show the woman's face?
Oh, yeah.
I see the... Let me see if it's the same one.
I
think it's supposed to look like Jamie Lee Curtis.
It does not look anything like Jamie Lee Curtis.
It doesn't... Yeah.
No, it does not.
No, it does. I mean, it looks like if Madame Clouseau did a wax sculpture of Jamie Lee Curtis, I think that's what it would look like.
It's more like if Helen Keller did a wax sculpture of Jamie Lee Curtis.
It's not that dissimilar, especially like side by side with the Jamie Lee Curtis picture.
Yes, Stacy Keach.
Yeah, no. I've always wanted to see this. It's one of those that like it always caught my eye, and I've always remembered it, but I never rented it because it was kind of like, I don't know.
Yeah,
I was essentially like allowed to watch anything. I could rent just about anything I wanted.
Okay.
And watch anything I wanted.
All right.
But it just never did it. It looked interesting and kind of titillating to like a preteen boy, but
of course.
Not enough to like keep me from, I don't know, renting RoboCop 2 or Legend or whatever weird film I was going to rent. Do you have any that stuck out to you in the old days?
I've never seen this, but I saw a lot of that kind of thing. Honestly, the ones that really stuck out, Fright Night.
Oh, Fright Night had a great cover.
One of the greatest, scariest covers I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Doesn't represent the film that well, but which is fine. It's kind of deceptive because, Yeah,
I mean, it's if you guys haven't seen it, it's a silhouetted old Victorian house, and there's like person in a window that's lit up, otherwise in a dark 3-story house. But above it, the clouds have formed into like a gaping vampire maw with these other kind of ghouls escaping out the side of it, all in like cloud form.
It's a terrifying image.
It really is.
And it's funny because if you watch the movie, they are depicting characters from the movie, but the character that's the most terrifying in that cover is the lamest character maybe in the history of horror.
Yeah.
Who you just want to punch in the face constantly.
It's the her that the...
What? No, I thought that was the dude, the spiky haired dude.
No, like if you just Google Fright Night, you'll see that it's side by side. If you click on the first picture that comes up, and then you see on the left hand, like next to it, it's exactly the woman.
No, you're right. It's when she does the whole... Okay.
But she's also not really that big a part of that.
No, not at all. But, I always just assumed it was that idiot they all hate.
Yeah, his best friend, the main character's best friend.
Yeah, who's in a bunch of the other promotional stuff. Yeah. He's the Bud the Chud of the Fright Night universe.
Yeah. He always reminded me of the Karate Kid guy, but put him in a body bag, Johnny.
Yes, he's very much like that guy, 100%. Yeah. Also, completely underrated horror film.
Fright Night? Yeah.
Life Force.
Oh, Life Force.
It wasn't even salacious. It was just fascinating. I wanted to know what was happening.
Yeah. There was another film that I never rented from the video store.
Not that video store.
I knew about it. I knew of it. I'd heard whispers. You'd pass by the horror aisle and you'd see the cover and like, oh, should I do it? You know, am I allowed to do it?
It was called Pink Flamingo.
Eat shit.
That's the subtitle. It should be.
Semicolon, eat shit.
Oh man, I can't wait for Sam Raimi to do Pink Flamingos, the remake.
Weirdly, actual horror, in a way, being shown. This film also purportedly had that. It was an all-black cover, a lame skull drawn on it, and in big red letters, it said, Faces of Death.
Faces of Death? Okay. All right.
Today we are talking about Faces of Death.
Here, hold on. Let me open my Boulevard Wheat with my Kansas City Chiefs bottle opener.
Now, for all you kids who don't know, now you know, that's it. Enjoy the podcast. Hope you come back for next episode.
Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and
please recommend to all your parents
all your
and their
boomers
grandparents and any vice principals you know.
Except Jeffrey Jones. Do not talk to Jeffrey Jones.
Well, similarly sick and disturbing. This is a 1978 pseudo-documentary, found footage-y collection that was purported to be real deaths and mutilations and things captured on film.
Right.
And you could see it in the theater. It had stuff like Cannibal Holocaust, but this was part of the what would become known as like a Mondo film, which is kind of a subgenre of exploitative documentary films. You know, they're like in a pseudo-documentaries. They're usually focused on sensational topics, be it sex, death, torture. A lot of times they'll have like scenes from quote unquote other countries. Mm-hmm. They tended to be very ethnocentric, and
it was also kind of like the flip side of cinema verite. It was kind of like the grindhouse version of cinema verite, where it's like not quite true.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it came out of, you know, some European, a lot of Italian grindhouse, shock documentary stuff, you know, where it's like, oh, let's go check in on this African tribe or this South American tribe. And then with Faces of Death, it kind of became, this isn't quite a snuff film, but it's the closest you can get.
Right. I think that was kind of like brought back later, unfortunately, with the torture porn genre. Was it Green Inferno by Eli Roth?
Yes, yeah. I mean,
that's what it feels like.
I mean, that's very Mondo-ish.
That's the feel.
That's very Cannibal Holocaust-y.
Right, yes.
As opposed to those where you could, like, those are definitely films. This was a little more, like, purported to be real. And this was a time when the rumor was as much fact as anything. This is still, like, this is long before Blair Witch, you know, where it's like, oh, did this happen? Mm-hmm. Is this stuff real? It was enough to where it got put on Britain's list, you know, after Britain passed the Video Recordings Act of 84, where anything extreme or obscene wasn't allowed to be shown in the country and was banned. Stuff like Night of the Living Dead, Evil Dead, Phantasm. Those were all video nasties that weren't allowed. Faces of Death was much more extreme. I mean, it did end up getting banned in many other countries, like Australia, New Zealand, Germany. In total, it was banned in, I think, 46 countries? No, 48 countries?
Which is funny because it's not real.
Oh, well, we'll get to that. It was voted the 27th most controversial film of all time. I don't know where they did that, but that is something that the director purported himself. Now, the director was not Conan Lascelari, because that was a pseudonym for
Steve Jones.
Steve Jones. No, John Allen Schwartz.
Okay, all right. That's actually a better one than I had.
He was breaking into the film business. He had worked on some documentary footage and just learning how to piece things together. And then they came up with this idea. He actually watched something called The Hellstorm Chronicles, which is a cool name for a film. It was a movie about etymologists who believe that insects will destroy mankind and take over the earth. It was shot as a documentary. And so when he watched it, he was convinced and he thought it was true. But as the credits rolled, he discovered it had twisted truth with fiction.
like 90% of Disney films, the whole Lemmings thing and the whole Davy Crockett shit, like all of that was fabricated by Disney. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
All
Well,
those Disney documentaries were complete fabrications.
I mean, really, honestly, documentaries have had problems with that since the very inception.
Yeah.
I mean, Nanook of the North was a big proponent of that. You know, what was that,
10?
1920, somewhere around there?
Yeah.
So he kind of came up with this idea, putting these shocking and extreme sequences to film, but he had to come up with an idea because as they were laying out some of these footage that they had, they realized that they needed something to bring it together. And so they found this guy, Michael Carr, who just happened to be someone they found around where they were working.
In their parking lot, by the dumpster.
I think the story that he told is that he had seen him and he thought, oh, this guy's like kind of weird and creepy. He would be perfect as our pseudo-host.
He wasn't as good a quarterback as David or Derek Carr, so...
He plays this pathologist who is showing you these purported real scenes of death and dismemberment and whatnot. And to get to that earlier thing that you had said about the veracity of the thing, an original film is a mixture of both real footage and fake footage. So about 60% of the footage in Faces of Death is real. About 40% is fake or embellished. And again, to describe what happens in Face of Death, there's stuff like a woman jumping to her death. There is Holocaust footage. There are car accidents, mangled corpses. You have, I think they said the pathologist to the stars, which is how he was known. He showed some autopsy footage that he had done. But you also had stuff that they did that was fake. Now, some of it they filmed, some of it they bought from news organizations, but a lot of stuff they went all over the place. They went to a lot of slaughterhouses and watched animals being killed and mutilated. He told a lot of wild stories. There was this one story he told that he went to this lamb slaughterhouse and this guy, he said, put me in the film. And he's like, why should I put you in the film? And this guy just reached down and bit the ear off a live lamb as it screams out before he murdered the lamb. He said that was crazy and he was very disturbed. He didn't end up putting him in the film.
Good.
Thankfully.
Somebody please prosecute that person. Jesus fucking Christ.
He said that the lamb screams reverberate in his head to this
Claire
day.
Starling said.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's the first thing that popped in my head when I read that.
Right, yeah.
He went to Compton and he found people doing underground dog fights. And he was filming pit bulls fighting almost to the death. Thankfully, it wasn't to the death. They would put fake blood on the dogs. And when one of the dogs fell down due to exhaustion, they were able to stop the fight and they cut the scene so it looks like the dog dies there. Another famous scene in the film kind of goes back to the Mondo film roots and also the genre that's known as a Guna Guna epic. And a lot of those were exploitation pseudo-documentaries that focused on the Far East and Southeast Asia and Africa and South America and the Pacific, of showing these exploitative scenes of native cultures. And oh, look at the weird stuff they do for shock value because it's not like us. But the one that they do, they went to, I think it was an Indian restaurant, and they were kind of Temple of Doom. He had remembered a story of in some Middle East where they would eat monkey brains at the table. He got a monkey trainer, and then they mocked up a monkey head, and they built this table so that you kind of collapse the table around the monkey, and only its head is sticking out. And they put the monkey in there, and the monkey started freaking out.
Well, yeah.
Obviously, just terrified. And the trainer tried to calm him down, and the monkey wouldn't. And so they then filmed the monkey getting hit with mallets. But they were prop mallets. They didn't hurt the monkey at all. Still, though. Then they took the monkey out, and they had a fake monkey head that they then filmed with real mallets bashing the monkey head open. And then they had fake brains that then the Middle Easterners at the table would pick spoons up and eat the monkey brains.
I mean, were they supposed to be Middle Easterners, or they were supposed to be Indian or Pakistani, or like what? I mean, what does that even mean?
I mean,
because are they talking about the Hindu world or the Muslim world, or even just in crass generalities?
I don't think that they cared about that.
They didn't care about that in Temple of Doom either.
Yeah, I mean, they had the monkey and his trainer dressed up in Middle East garb.
Yeah, pretty great.
Yeah, I mean, again, this is the late 70s. They're trying to be shocking exploitative. That's kind of what all these films are about. And this was kind of pushing forth into not only showing these lewd and crude depictions of other cultures and their practices, but also like these horrific actual deaths. You know, to this day, some people watch that still believe that monkey scene was real.
Sure.
And they actually killed him. But one of the people who made that monkey head was a guy named Alan Apone, who went on to do makeup effects in much bigger things, many like Captain America, Winter Soldier, Westworld, Django Unchained. That was one of his early beginnings before he could work on Dunkirk or Suicide Squad.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But it became infamous because there were these real deaths, and it was all purported, quote, to be real. And the lines of fact and fiction, they were very blurry at the time. And so it was always like, oh, have you seen Faces of Death? Should we rent Faces of Death? You want to like see this is... Because this is long before you had Rotten.com and things, before the horrors of the world were easily laid bare for anybody with a mouse and a screen. Back then, you had what was purported to be a real documentary at the time, real death.
Well, at this time, these were tapes. I mean, you could watch it in the theater, and you could rent it at the video store eventually. But like this, and the things that were wrought after it because of it, were those things that you just like these underground tapes you would get in college, and somebody had this videotape that you could watch that really had this thing that was really dark. It was totally real.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, you get your banned from television or your death scenes, your traces of death, your faces of gore.
Right.
You know, shit like
that.
that.
Mr. Show actually has a very funny skit about that.
Yeah. They do.
They're not really fucking. Underground Videotape Railroad. Yeah, it's pretty good.
The film was made for $450,000, and it grossed at the box office $35 million.
Oh, boy.
And supposedly, at least by 2013, had grossed $60 million total.
Jesus Christ.
So, I mean, this was big business and became a huge thing at the time.
Did it spawn sequels?
I mean, yeah, there's a whole, I think there were 5 or 6 Faces of Death sequels.
Sounds about right.
And at least the first one, they didn't feel like just showing some of these scenes, just bam, 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 kind of told a story. And so they wanted to have this pathologist character, like you're dealing with what these scenes mean and a human take on some of this. In the latest sequels, they disposed of all of that. And it just becomes true grindhouse. Let's just find footage of...
Yeah, like real autopsies and shit like that. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Which is... Now you could just find that online. Even like there's no reason for even a website or a collection of it. You could just find that online. I mean, there are plenty of places where you can just find. In fact, to the extent where
Faces of Death, I think it is something that some people saw and kind of helped push the boundaries decades later when they were making films, whether it be your Saws or your Hostels, your
Turistas, yeah.
Green Infernos, things like that. Especially when they're trying to ape those Mondo films in a way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're almost poking fun at them for being only half true. It's almost it feels like to a certain extent the filmmakers that made films after that, I feel like they like playing in that space, but they don't want to give the impression that they're actually real. Like Saw's not real. Nobody's really tried in legitimate filmmakers have tried to do the Faces of Death thing again. And I think for a good reason.
One reason might be because it did affect some people immensely. There's a story of the high school teacher in 1985 who screened it for his class.
Oh, that's right.
But a year later, in 1986, there was a 15-year-old boy who did kill somebody. He beat a classmate of his to death with a baseball bat.
I was going to say, a baseball. That's impressive, actually.
Yeah, unfortunately, when he was interviewed by a psychiatric counselor, he said that he had decided to kill someone and he'd wanted to see what it was like and really feel it after he had seen the Faces of Death video that depicted both animal and human deaths. And he said that it sparked that in him. Now, hopefully, in the next year or two, when the Faces of Death remake...
What is the point of a Faces of Death remake? It's like the Blair Witch remake. What is the point? What are you trying to accomplish here?
I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know what you're trying to accomplish here.
I do not understand it, but it is in the process of being made. Euphoria's Barbie Ferreira and Stranger Things' Dacre Montgomery. It's written and directed by the same team behind 2018's digital horror film Cam.
I don't know.
Which would be Daniel Goldhaber. He's also the guy who did How to Blow Up a Pipeline, which is very good. That's well worth your time. I don't really know. A woman employed as a website content moderator comes across a series of violent videos reproducing death scenes from a film.
Okay, so now if you're going to remake it, it has to be a meta thing where it's not the direct audience reaction to it. It's the audience reacting to an audience reacting to it, because we know that it's not real. Right.
Yes. Thankfully, that does appear to be the avenue that they're going.
Well, how else could you do it? You know what I mean? Otherwise, just waiting for other people to forget that it happened, but not in the internet age. I mean, this is not how it works.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't.
That's the only way you can do it, honestly. Unless, not the only way, but the only, if you want to make it that type of film, that's the only way you can do it. The other one is to be like, you go like the Scream meta version, but like that's a different animal. Or to do the new Matlock TV show where they are aware that Matlock was a TV show. So what?
I don't know. This Cam movie son, Alice, an ambitious cam girl, wakes up one day to discover that she's been replaced on her show with an exact replica of herself.
I've actually watched it a couple of times accidentally. It's okay.
You accidentally watched it a couple times?
Well, because I watched it. It was the same thing before. I watched it and I was like half paying attention. I got all the way to the end and I'm like, oh, I see what you're doing here at the end. And then I'm like looking around for another movie to play in the background. And I'm like, oh, this seems interesting. And I put it on and I'm like, have I seen this? And then I'm working and then like 45 minutes, hour into it, I'm like, fuck, I have seen this. Well, I've already fucking put this much time into it.
Okay. Premise-wise, that's interesting.
I'm not saying it's terrible, because there are way more movies that are worse than that, but it's okay.
All right. Good to know. And I'd say, in general, folks, I can't recommend Face of Death. It's not for me. Especially 2, 3, 4. No thank you. Again, you guys do you. But as a cultural moment, I think...
It's a big one.
Helped, spark a lot of things and a lot of people, filmmakers that you might know and recognize their work. Kind of helped with blurring the lines of real and unreal, those found footage, documentary type things. I think Faces of Death, it's a precursor to a lot of that stuff.
It really basically is like Faces of Death, and then, I mean, in the mainstream at least, Blair Witch. There's not really a lot in between that was culturally that impactful.
There are plenty of films in between. I mean, Cannibal Holocaust comes out after, UFO abduction.
Sure. But are those as culturally relevant?
Like no, not as big.
By the time you get to Blair Witch, you're living in a house that the Faces of Death built. And with a lot of hit and misses between, so...
Yeah, but it's definitely a unique thing. And I thought for this Halloween, let's peer at one of the darker paths that horror films, I mean, if even is gore and death and atrocities, I guess that's horror in a way, the horrors of mankind. It's not my type of horror, but,
I'm grossed out by it, and I don't want any of this, but I understand. If you're not weirded out, okay, that's fine.
Yeah, but I mean, feel free to take a gander, deal with your own look at morality and mortality.
And if you want to look at the tapestry of the horror genre and even the reality genre, like you probably should watch it. I mean, you really should just kind of know, like where these things come from if you want to understand the current landscape.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's one of those building block pieces, and for us, especially of our generation, it was one of those. Taboo. It was out in the open, but it was taboo. And, it was always with hushed whispers and, shady back of the store deals kind of thing.
But you could get it at Blockbuster.
actually don't think Blockbuster carried it. I think it was banned, but there were establishments.
Yes, it is hushed tones, and it is stuff that you think you're getting something secret, something taboo, something from like the movie 8mm. You think you're going to that fucking weird bazaar, and you're getting the secret thing or whatever. But maybe you'd have to go behind a curtain. But yeah, you can totally fucking rent it.
The weird thing is that as there more sequels came out, I think it became more okay, but those were just more gratuitous.
Yeah, those got worse.
Just straight death and shootings and bombings.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Faces of Death is on Shudder, and it's on Roku.
Probably on the Roku channel, yeah.
Yeah, it's on the Roku channel. So,
It is a cultural touchstone. I'm out.
It just never really appealed to me.
No. No.
It's nothing I need to see.
But understandable that it exists. You know?
No. And it had a purpose, and, I think there is even some element, of artistry from what the director was trying to do and whatnot.
Sure, yeah. I mean, it's been mimicked so many times. It has to be doing something right?
Yeah. He was trying to say something. Whether his aims amounted to a hill of beans in the end, for better or ill, that's up for debate. But that's not our hill to put a flag into.
A hill of beans to die on. Man, you're just really
I'm
fingers on the
on.
pulse of the nation, man. You're so you're so online, so hip, man.
All of my metaphors slap, my friend.
No more malarkey, says Jake Nelson. No more malarkey.
Yeah. All my analogies, they're rizzed up, my friend.
Rizzed up. I don't think you're using that right.
No, it's very demure, very mindful.
Whoa, you're being real Brett right now.
Well, sometimes Brett's got to watch Faces.
Sometimes it's Brett Ratner.
Sometimes it's, yes.
No, I don't know. I had nothing with that. I felt like there's something there, but it wasn't.
Tune in for your next spooky tale of the geeky world that
spookiness
you all live in. Please like, share, subscribe. Rate us 5 Faces of Death on the podcast app of your choice.
That actually works. Kudos.
There we go. On Apple Podcasts, that is the easiest way for us to be seen. Thank you for listening. We greatly appreciate each and every one of you, and hope that we have brightened your day or informed you in some way.
Despite Faces of Death.
Everyone's got their thing.
We hope we brought sunshine to your day by presenting you with Faces of Death.
We didn't make you watch it, okay?
But we will!
Skip, until they listen to us next time, what should they do?
They should clean up after themselves to some sort of reasonable degree. Make sure they paid their tabs. Make sure they've tipped their bartenders, KJs, DJs, and the like. Make sure...
AJs. Tip your AJs as well.
Yeah, every AJ that you know. AJ Bowen, AJ Melendez...
Make sure and focus on the tip of any HJs also.
It depends on if they're circumcised or not. Make sure that you have, I don't even know where I am. Make sure you support your local comic shops and retailers. And from Dispatch Ajax, we would like to say Godspeed, fair wizards.
Please, go away.